Tomorrow on Countdown, another GOP debate. Another chance for Mitt Romney to stay above the fray, another chance for Rick Perry to stumble, and another chance for the frontrunner of the week to make a misstep, this time with the crime of empathy.
I don't see how the party that says it's the party of the family is going to adopt an immigration policy which destroys families that have been here a quarter century.
And Newt knows a thing or three about families. Occupy Day 68. The fallout continues from the UC Davis pepper spray as the UC Davis chancellor holds an open forum for students but again declines to resign. Our guest, former Philadelphia police captain and current member of the Occupy movement, Ray Lewis. And the right's fright.
NASCAR people, as are most people in this country, are mature, tolerant people who fully understand when they're being insulted and condescended to. They understand it's a little bit of uppity-ism.
But at least some people know where the real threat lies: Muslim turkeys. In a little-known strike against freedom, yet again we are being forced into consuming meat slaughtered by means of a torturous method, Islamic slaughter. What a turkey! All that and more now on Countdown.
I'll be in charge of the turkey.
Good evening from New York. This is Wednesday, November the 23rd, 349 days until the 2012 presidential election. I'm David Shuster, sitting in for Keith Olbermann. Last night, the GOP presidential candidates held their 14th debate of the campaign season. The topic was national security. And the big question coming out of this debate is this: will Newt Gingrich be able to survive after his call for a humane policy towards illegal immigrants? Our fifth story in the countdown: Gingrich was moving up in the polls this week, the frontrunner in some, ahead of Mitt Romney and the ever-fading Herman Cain. So why would he risk that momentum by taking a risky position on a red meat issue for most conservatives? The candidates met at Washington's Constitution Hall in a debate sponsored by CNN and conservative think tanks, the Heritage Foundation and the American Enterprise Institute. The key moment came after moderator Wolf Blitzer asked Gingrich, the former Speaker of the House, if he would support amnesty for millions of illegal immigrants, including many who had been in this country a long time. Gingrich insisted recent immigrants should be sent home, but then he added this:
if you've been here 25 years and you got 3 kids and 2 grandkids, you've been paying taxes and obeying the law, you belong to a local church, I don't think we're going to separate you from your family, uproot you forcefully, and kick you out.
Minnesota Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann and former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney were quick to pounce on that heresy.
That, in effect, is amnesty.
The saying that we're going to say to the people who've come here illegally that now you're all going to get to stay, or some large number are going to get to stay and become permanent residents of the United States, that will only encourage more people to do the same thing.
But Gingrich refused to back down.
I'm prepared to take the heat for saying, let's be humane in enforcing the law without giving them citizenship, but by finding a way to create legality so that they are not separated from their family.
Governor.
And that perhaps is the first time in his long political career that Gingrich could be accused of playing the humane card. Romney, the frontrunner for most of the campaign, did not let it pass, and in typical Romney fashion, he tried to have it both ways.
I'm not going to start drawing lines here about who gets to stay and who gets to go. The principle is that we're not going to have an amnesty system that says that people who come here illegally get to stay for the rest of their life in this country legally.
We will have more on Gingrich and his immigration heresy in a moment with Democratic strategist Cliff Schecter. The GOP candidates, though, also engaged in some ritual Obama bashing, and much of it was fact-free. Michelle Bachmann attacked the president on terrorism and on last year's would-be underwear bomber.
He has essentially handed over our interrogation of terrorists to the ACLU. He's outsourced it to them. Our CIA has no ability to have any form of interrogation for terrorists.
Actually, Congresswoman, the president has simply banned torture. And while the underwear bomber was read his Miranda rights, that happened only after he'd already been questioned and then refused to talk. Texas Governor Rick Perry also tried bashing the president on the war against al-Qaeda.
This administration in particular has been an absolute failure when it comes to expending the dollars and supporting the CIA and the military intelligence around the world.
Someone should tell the governor that Osama bin Laden was killed last spring. And according to a report this week, Al-Qaeda is in such poor shape it cannot fill what used to be the most dangerous job in the world, the number 3 position in its hierarchy. As for GOP presidential contenders Herman Cain and former Senator Rick Santorum, they had their own bad moment on profiling.
We can do targeted identification. If you take a look at the people who have tried to kill us, it would be easy to figure out exactly what that identification profile looks like.
Obviously, Muslims would be someone you'd look at. Absolutely. Those are the folks who are the radical Muslims, are the people that are committing these crimes, as we've by and large, as well as younger males.
According to one 2009 study, there are more than 1.5 billion Muslims worldwide. And as Texas Congressman Ron Paul added,
what if they look like Timothy McVeigh? You know, he was pretty tough criminal.
McVeigh, of course, blew up the federal building in Oklahoma City in 1995. 168 people died. McVeigh was Caucasian and definitely not a Muslim. For more on last night's GOP debate and where it leaves the candidates, we're joined by Democratic strategist Cliff Schecter. Cliff, great to have you on the program.
Thanks so much, Dave. It's great to be here.
So Newt Gingrich calling for a humane approach to enforcing the law on illegal immigration. How come, given that most of the potentially viable candidates are running as far to the right as they can, so why would Gingrich essentially move left on this issue?
I think you hit the nail on the head before. I mean, this guy's never done anything remotely humane. And I think in the end, they're looking at polls. And, there was the old TV show, Everybody Loves Raymond. There could be a show, Everybody Hates Gingrich. I mean, the last week alone, even conservatives from George Will to Teabagger, Alan West to Jennifer Rubin and David Frum and writers have all come out and talked about what a nasty guy he is. So I think they're trying to, it's his way of trying to kind of lighten up his image a little, at least a little bit, because I think right now, he almost makes Jerry Sandusky seem likable.
Well, and to the point about Gingrich's policies, just last week he called child labor laws truly stupid and suggested that poor kids should replace union janitors in schools. So could his immigration stance perhaps be an attempt to distance himself from some of his own more offensive comments?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that's what it is. I mean, look, he's gone so far over the top. People are going to be, exposed to his history, how he left his first wife in the hospital when she had cancer and sued for divorce to the point where she couldn't even afford utility bills, his ethics violations. I mean, how he's treated people in general. I mean, even people on his own side don't like him. He's a pretty terrible guy. So, and this all is coming out now. So I think, maybe he's thinking about independence in New Hampshire. Maybe he's thinking at some point about out west and some of the primaries, perhaps the Hispanic vote. I'm not sure, but I think there's no doubt he's trying to make his image, make himself a little bit more likable because, again, he's just, a very, very unlikable guy.
And whether Newt Gingrich can make up with independents what he may have lost last night with conservatives, does he still have much of a chance, a real shot at the candidacy?
I don't think he has much of a shot, but I mean, you've been watching this carnival as I have over the past couple of months. The GOP falls in love with one of these nuts every month and then realizes that they're not presidential material. I don't know why it takes so long. And so Gingrich is sort of the only guy left standing if you find something in Mitt Romney's closet. You find like skeletons in his closet or something comes out about him we didn't know or he makes a big misstep. Gingrich might be standing there to benefit from it. The way I've written about it is, so far the entire GOP field, I think you could break it down as dopers, gropers, and lopers. And so they've all disqualified themselves. And so Gingrich may be the only one left if Romney falls.
Did any of the other candidates, though, help themselves last night? Maybe even Rick Perry by not having a forgetful moment or Herman Cain by not having much of any moments?
Well, maybe just by not groping somebody, Herman Cain helped himself. I don't know. When it comes to Rick Perry, yeah, I mean, he set the bar so low, right? He's been in that New Hampshire speech and in that last debate. I guess he remembered 3 thoughts in a row. So for Rick Perry, that's a great night. So maybe he helped himself a little bit and at least put himself back up to where people will think about him. But again, I don't think anybody helped themselves hugely. I mean, Cain did have a good night, and so did Perry, but they've both had such bad months. I just don't see them going anywhere.
I got the sense watching Romney last night that he looks like he's simply trying to run out the clock. He's trying to make sure he doesn't make any severe mistakes, stay within sort of the confines of conservative party orthodoxy, not go out on a limb. Does it look like perhaps that's a great strategy for him, given his advantage with organization and money and fundraising and all the things that it takes, that maybe this really is for Romney just trying to run out the clock?
Yeah, I think it is because, again, he may not quite be on Gingrich's level, but he's another one that people don't really like. I mean, he's not a beloved figure. Look, there are other Republicans who I may not like, but Rick Perry or Herman Cain that other Republicans seem to like. You know, Mitt Romney is a guy that is everybody's second choice. But in the end, if there's enough people that support him, you know, and say to themselves, oh, my God, I can't pick any of these other guys, then he will win in the end, which is what I think will happen. So, yeah, I think he's trying to run out the clock. He's got a lot of money. He's got a lot of personal money. He's raised a lot of money. He's got organization, as you said. You know, the first state, New Hampshire, obviously, is a state that he's been in that media market for a lot of years as governor of Massachusetts. So I think that's absolutely his strategy. Get the establishment, you know, endorsements like, Senator Ayotte up in New Hampshire and Congressman Bass and others, and try to run this thing out.
Democratic strategist Cliff Schecter. Cliff, great to have you on the program. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks, David.
After last night's debate, Mitt Romney headed off to Des Moines, Iowa, where he was endorsed today by a one-time potential rival for the presidency, South Dakota Republican Senator John Thune. Why would a South Dakota senator endorse Romney in Iowa? Quite possibly because Romney appears to be in trouble with conservatives in Iowa. CNN is reporting that an ad hoc coalition of Iowa conservative groups, including the Family Leader, the Iowa Faith and Freedom Coalition, Iowa Right to Life, and the Iowa branch of Concerned Women for America, met in secret on Monday with one goal: come together behind one Republican conservative who can stop Romney from becoming the GOP's 2012 presidential nominee. Bob Vanderplaats, president and CEO of the Family Leader, told CNN, "Our concern is that if the conservatives stay as fragmented as they are, that Romney could win the Iowa caucuses, and if he wins the Iowa caucuses, he will be the nominee." Daily Kos founder and publisher, Countdown contributor Markos Moulitsas joins us now to explore these latest workings of the far-right conservative mind. Markos, good to have you on the program tonight.
Happy Thanksgiving, David.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. All of these panderings to the far right to try and become the president, and it comes to this: Iowa conservatives getting together in private to do anything they can to keep Romney from becoming president. What do you make of it?
Yeah, they are worried. I mean, fact is that there's this ephemeral creature called the Not Mitt Romney that's been floating around, adopting host after host body, but none of them seem to fit. And if they cannot come together and coalesce, around a single Not Mitt Romney candidate, then there is a real danger that Romney gets a nomination. So they have every reason to be worried because nobody likes Romney in the Republican primary, but no one means quarter of the electorate. That's all you need if everybody else splits the other 75%.
Vanderplaats claims that winning the Iowa caucuses are the key to becoming the Republican nominee. I remember Mike Huckabee winning the Iowa caucuses, John McCain losing back in 2008. But just how important are the Iowa caucuses this time around?
Yeah, I mean, Iowa and New Hampshire really have a vested interest in trying to perpetuate the notion that they are key to choosing the nominee. Fact is that the people who have been leading in Iowa over the last couple of months, and it's been that Not Mitt Romney, haven't really spent a lot of time in Iowa. I mean, the two people who have most spent time in Iowa are Michelle Bachmann and Rick Santorum, and we know where they're at in the polls right now.
Markos, Mitt Romney's flip-flops, is it possible that maybe they are coming back to haunt Mitt Romney, particularly with conservatives? I mean, whether it's originally him saying that a woman has a right to choose when he ran for governor of Massachusetts, now he's flipped on that. I mean, you can go down the list. Social conservatives don't seem to trust this guy.
Well, they have no reason to trust the guy. He's literally been on the other side of every issue. And I mean, literally every single issue of importance to conservatives, he has been on the other side. So it's not coming back to haunt them. It's haunted him since last election cycle, since 2008. And the only thing that sort of saved them is that every single one of the not Romney candidates has at least one item where they violate conservative orthodoxy, usually on immigration. But that's what's saving Mitt Romney right now, because he actually violates orthodoxy on every single issue.
And then there's the whole issue of his religious faith. A Pew poll out this week shows that 53% of white evangelical Christians say Mormons are not Christians. Could those numbers be behind this secret meeting in Iowa?
I actually don't think the Mormonism is as big of a deal, because you know who else isn't a Christian in the minds of conservatives? Muslim socialists from Kenya. And they're convinced that Barack Obama is one of those guys. So if it's between the white Mormon from Utah or the black Muslim socialist from Kenya, I don't think it's any secret which way they're going to choose.
And do you see a path for Romney towards getting the candidacy without the white evangelical Christian support that this group seems to represent?
Yeah, the path is easy. It's that the not Mitt Romney candidates remain fragmented, so they all get 5 to 10% of the vote. Romney gets 25 to 30%, and that's enough for him to win. So that's his path to victory. He cannot have his opposition coalesce against, around a single candidate. So I think these conservatives are going to be really fighting hard. None of these guys are perfect. Whether it's Ron Paul, Michelle Bachmann, or Herman Cain, or Rick Perry, none of them are perfect, but one of them is more perfect or less flawed than Mitt Romney. They're going to have to choose one.
Markos Moulitsas, Countdown contributor, founder of the Daily Kos. Markos, always great to have you on the program, and have a terrific Thanksgiving.
You too, and all the viewers of the show as well.
Thank you. In Wisconsin, the effort to recall Republican Governor Scott Walker has collected about 20% of the signatures needed to get that issue on the ballot, but recall supporters now fear a sabotage effort by Walker's right-wing union-busting activists. Those activists appear to have been caught bragging about destroying legitimate recall petitions. That's next. This is Countdown. The chancellor at UC Davis has now answered questions from students about that pepper spray incident. She got a petition but clearly didn't get the message, and she will not resign. A statewide student walkout is now scheduled for Monday. A right-wing columnist is now bashing Butterball turkeys. Pamela Geller says Butterball is wrong to butcher in accordance with Islamic dietary guidelines that call for animals to be killed humanely and cleanly. We will diagram Thanksgiving in Geller's home. From Islamophobia to possible racism, Texas Governor Rick Perry alleged that President Obama never had to work for anything. But Rush Limbaugh is not as subtle. He called the First Lady uppity. Janeane Garofalo will be here to analyze. And as Wisconsin voters try to recall Governor Scott Walker, his defenders appear to be engaged in dirty tricks. We will get the latest from Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett next on Countdown. One of the first formal organizational meetings in the history of the Republican Party was held in a Wisconsin schoolhouse in 1854. Now the party's top elected official in the state, Governor Scott Walker, is trying to fend off a well-organized effort by educated voters who want to throw him out of office. In our fourth story in the Countdown, the effort to recall Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker is officially underway, and both sides are waging an all-out campaign to win the fight. An estimated 30,000 Wisconsin residents took over Capitol Square in Madison on Saturday to promote their recall efforts, which entered a crucial phase just over a week ago. The group has until January the 17th to gather the more than 540,000 signatures required to force a recall election. Organizers say that in the first 4 days of this effort, they gathered 105,000 signatures. The recall effort is in response to a law that Walker and state Republicans jammed through the legislature last February, effectively ending collective bargaining rights for most public workers. You may recall the protests at the time when tens of thousands of people, many of them state workers, occupied the Capitol. This summer, on the heels of the demonstrations, voters in 2 districts recalled Republican state senators who supported Walker's legislation. Under state law, the governor himself is not eligible for recall until he has served 1 year in office. That date will arrive in January. Walker supporters haven't exactly rolled over in the midst of the recall effort. On Saturday, they staged a counter-protest. But not all the pro-Walker efforts have been on the up and up. Anti-Walker activists have reported receiving death threats, and police have received reports of recall petitions being tampered with. At least one Walker support group allegedly set up a Facebook page that encouraged the destruction of recall petitions. Under Wisconsin law, defacing or destroying such documents is a felony punishable by up to 3.5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. For his part, Governor Walker has now released his second ad in an attempt to shore up his image.
At this point, in my opinion, and I'm only speaking from the eye, it feels a little like sour grapes. It's, we didn't get our way, and so we want to change the outcome.
The governor and his supporters have now spent over $1 million on advertisements campaigning against the recall. Joining us now, a man who narrowly lost the 2010 Wisconsin gubernatorial election to Scott Walker, and whose name has been floated as a possible replacement for Walker, Democratic Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett. Mayor Barrett, thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you, David. It's great to be on your show.
What do you make of the 105,000 signatures collected in the first 4 days? Are 540,000, is that reachable?
Well, I'd say what's happened so far has been extraordinary. We've probably had 20,000 people in the state who have circulated recall petitions already just in the first week. And earlier this week, one of the Republican congressmen said that he thought it was all but certain that there would be a recall election. So when you've got Republicans and Democrats alike agreeing that the recall petitioners will reach that 540,000 person mark, it looks more and more like there will be a recall election next year. The question is going to be when it will occur.
And there does appear to be some effort by Walker supporters to try and thwart the recall by destroying documents and petitions. What's been the public reaction to that story?
Well, I think people are concerned because they know last year when we had the recall elections for the state senators, that the Republicans put up fake candidates to run in the Democratic primary. And earlier this year, just a month ago, in fact, you had a Republican supporter who filed a recall petition against Governor Walker so that would trigger his ability to raise unlimited amounts of money. So ironically, the first recall petition that was filed against Governor Walker was filed by a Republican. Of course, it was done so that he could raise these unlimited amounts of money. But I think people are concerned because I've heard people talking about having circulators who do get these petitions signed, but then destroy them. And that is obviously something that's against the law. And so people should be concerned about that and make sure that if they're signing a petition document to recall Governor Walker, that they know that that is going to be submitted and not destroyed.
The occupation of the Capitol in Madison last winter was a huge deal nationwide. There were protests in Madison, Democratic lawmakers who left Wisconsin to try and stop the legislation, efforts by Governor Walker to have the state police try to fetch the Democrats. How does the environment now compare with what we saw last February?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm surprised that the intensity is as great as it was last February because it really has not subsided. People were angry then. Earlier this week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago now, there was a poll that came out from St. Norbert's that said that 58% of the people in the state favor a recall. I thought that those numbers would actually drop. They have risen rather than fallen in the last several weeks. And on the first day alone, we had people sign petitions in all 72 counties. So you've got a real widespread grassroots effort here in the state of Wisconsin to have an election early next year.
And in October, Wisconsin lost more jobs than any other state. How big a role is the economy and the economic problems? How big a role is that playing now in the anti-Walker mood?
Well, just like every other state, we're concerned about the economy here. And it was surprising and frankly quite shocking that Wisconsin lost more jobs, 9,300 private sector jobs in October. That's more than any other state in the entire country, according to the news reports that I saw earlier this week. This is on the heels of his statements that he would create 250,000 jobs. So for the fourth month in a row, the state has lost jobs. And people are concerned about that because just last month there was a special session in the state legislature that was supposed to be geared toward creating jobs, and instead it went all sorts of directions on social issues. And that was not what the people in the state are concerned about right now. They want this economy moving again.
Mayor Barrett, I can't let you go before asking you that if the recall election does go forward, will you vie for the Democratic nomination?
Well, right now, David, I'm running for re-election for the mayor of Milwaukee. It's a job that I love. And quite honestly, I think that it would be a mistake for any Democrat right now to say that he or she would be a candidate because the focus should be on Scott Walker right now. That's where the recall is right now. There's going to be plenty of time. And what I've told people who are concerned is that there will be a viable candidate. There will be a very good candidate.
So fair to say that you're leaving the door open because you could run for mayor and governor at the same time.
I don't think I'll be running for mayor and governor at the same time, obviously. I like my job, and we're going to just take a look and see when this election plays itself out.
Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett, Democrat from Wisconsin. Mayor Barrett, thanks so much for joining us on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, David. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. When police raided Zuccotti Park in New York to kick out Occupy Wall Street, they found all sorts of dangerous objects, especially books, thousands of books. The cops destroyed some, damaged others, and many books just disappeared. Is this America? Put down that Dickens lefty and come out with your hands up. This is Countdown. Coming up, what does your Thanksgiving turkey have to do with the war on terror? Well, nothing. But Pamela Geller of the ironically named American Thinker disagrees. But first, the sanity break, and it was on this day in 1987. A child was born in Santiago, Chile. Raised in Marlboro, New York by her adoptive parents, the precocious young lady was later scouted by a casting director to be part of a new MTV reality show. She was perfect for the part and was a breakout star when the show Jersey Shore premiered in 2009. And today, the world knows her simply as Snooki. Time marches on. We begin with the TMO adorable clip of the day. With Thanksgiving tomorrow, everyone wants to look their best, and this guy is getting some grooming help from his cat. He's pretty good, too. Could probably get a job at Super Cats. If you think this is impressive, you should have seen afterwards when the cat gave him a shave. Now, if you really want to impress people at your Thanksgiving, this is the way to do it. While those suckers are opening beer the old-fashioned way with their hands, you break out the big guns, the big, unsanitary sort of disgusting guns, your feet. Yes, those are feet. And then it's as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4. Eventually you'll get the beer open. There you go. Once it's been that close to your feet, who really wants to drink it anyway? Except for that guy. Finally, we end with a little record breaking. This young man is trying to break the record for the longest headstand while playing a guitar. Because as everyone knows, if you're looking to break a record, might as well choose one that nobody's ever attempted before. He's in position, and there you have it, the world record. Life does not get much more exciting than this. I think Hendrix started the same way, except, you know, without the stupid headstand part. Time marches on. Coming up, the latest on Occupy Wall Street, we will talk with the former Philadelphia police captain who was arrested with fellow demonstrators at Occupy New York. In California, the chancellor at UC Davis has taken another stab at explaining the pepper spray police force-fed to her students. And back here in New York, there's growing controversy over what authorities did with books seized at the Occupy Library. That's next on Countdown. Countdown comes to you live each weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern. The program is replayed at 11 p.m., 2 a.m., 7 a.m., noon, and 3 p.m. The Occupy movement is now flexing its legal muscle, demanding the ouster of UC Davis Chancellor Linda Katehi after new allegations that the university was alerted to allegations of police brutality 3 years ago. Well, in New York, protesters are demanding the Bloomberg administration return thousands of confiscated books. In our third story in the Countdown, a former UC Davis police officer reveals he filed a complaint in 2008 against the very officer responsible for pepper spraying students there last week.
Specifically, allegations of excessive force, which I reported to the university and to its attorneys, and it appears nothing was done about that.
Meanwhile, students are ratcheting up their demands that Chancellor Linda Katehi resign.
Chancellor Katehi, I have with me in physical form the petition for your resignation. There are 80,000 signatures. Do you acknowledge or accept this petition?
I acknowledge the petition. Of course, since you have the signatures, it's there.
Katehi also announced the university will cover the medical bills of those pepper sprayed, and she's asking the charges against the arrested students be dropped. Meanwhile, a lawyer for Occupy Los Angeles said today that the city plans to evict campers there as early as Monday. In New York, protesters who were already evicted today demanded police return books confiscated in the Zuccotti Park raid. The so-called People's Library included Shakespeare, Maya Angelou, even Mayor Bloomberg's biography.
Today, we are here to question the appropriateness and legality of the confiscation of approximately 4,000 books.
What was going on here was the creation of a community through conversation and the sharing of ideas. And what happened, what you see sitting right here in front of you, is an affront to me not only as a student, but as an American.
Another courageous American calling on the Bloomberg administration to allow occupiers to peacefully protest is our next guest, former Philadelphia Police Captain Ray Lewis and current Occupy Wall Street member. Lewis was arrested last week, but says he remains undeterred, vowing to stay for as long as it takes to create real change in this country. Joining us here in the studio is retired Police Captain Ray Lewis. And Captain Lewis, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thanks for your contribution to the movement.
I want to ask you, what made you decide to take part in these protests?
Okay, before I do that, I want to apologize to all the occupiers for not being there yesterday and today. as I have been interviewed by TV stations and radio, which I thought is going to help get the message out more than me being at the site of Zuccotti Park, but I will be there tomorrow for Thanksgiving.
And what is the message that drew you to the protest?
The suffering. The suffering that these people were willing to endure, not for their own benefit, but for social justice for everyone.
A lot of people see that iconic image of you being hauled away in your police uniform, and it strikes them that it really sort of strikes a chord. What is it about your background as a police officer that made you particularly sympathize with this movement?
I saw a tremendous amount of suffering. 19 of my years was spent in the most economically depressed areas of Philadelphia, and I saw unimaginable suffering.
What was your response to the UC Davis pepper spraying incident? Have you had a chance to see the pepper spray photos? What did you think when you first heard about it and saw those images from UC Davis?
Disbelief, outrage. This man is a sociopath. He should not only lose his job, he should be charged for assault and tried. And I don't think perhaps this man doesn't even belong in society.
And when you see that he's wearing a police uniform, and you wore the uniform for so many years, what goes through your mind?
Well, there's always going to be some bad apples in any profession. But with law enforcement, it's one of the most important professions to reduce greatly the number of bad apples.
In your view, you served in Philadelphia, but Mayor Bloomberg here in New York, is he misusing the police force, and if so, how?
I have criticized the destruction of Zuccotti Park, and the criticism is solely directed toward Mayor Bloomberg. He is the one that set the order out to do that. Before this happened, there were strategic meetings, numerous, with Mayor Bloomberg, his top officials, top law enforcement officials, and even the sanitation officials. Everybody was involved, and every angle was covered. And at the end of it, he put his stamp on it. He is responsible. And then he tries to come out with the fact that I'm responsible, it's the macho authoritarian image. Well, what's he going to say? I'm not responsible? I had nothing to do with it?
As far as the raid itself, a lot of the apparently thousands of books that were at the People's Library at Zuccotti Park, those are now missing. The police, the administration, the city administration cannot account for what happened to them. There are some allegations that they were simply thrown away. Is that standard procedure when a raid is conducted to simply throw books away?
No, that was conducted that way again because of the mayor. The standard of conduct here is if it's not an illegal weapon, if it's not stolen property, if it's personal property that people have a right to own and maintain, you have to give the person a property receipt. There's a number on that. They get a copy. The other copy gets put around the property. It's taken away, and at a later date they can get it back.
What have the conversations been like between you and other police officers, particularly those who were arresting you?
There was, it was basically silence, but one officer did say that on the sly that I had the testicles of an elephant.
Mm-hmm. And do you get this, and tell me the reaction of the Occupy Wall Street activists when they see here's a former police officer joining their ranks?
Well, at first, and I fully expected this. It was like, is this a reverse psychology type of thing, that he's not the scraggly-looking guy trying to infiltrate. So maybe now they're going to use this guy, but he's still working for the police. So it took a while. And I never asked to join any meeting. I showed up anonymously. I took my raincoat off. I was there. I held my sign. And then I left. I never asked to participate. Just recently, I was asked to participate in the first, quote, General Assembly meeting that they have.
Take me again back to your arrest. What you were doing, what happened, how they handled you, what the circumstances were.
It was a perfectly legal arrest. I committed civil disobedience by sitting in the street and refusing to move. The conduct of the police in arresting me and all the protesters I saw that were arrested was exemplary. And I will say, though, the moment that I was walking across that intersection was the proudest moment of my life.
How so?
Because I thought I was doing the greatest thing I've ever done. And I've had many academic achievements recognized, professional achievements, but I considered that to be the most important thing I ever did.
And it sounds like you don't have a problem with police arresting people who commit peaceful acts of civil disobedience walking in the middle of the street. Your main issue, though, is when they're going through and tearing down Zuccotti Park, or when they're mishandling people in the course of those arrests. That's where things have gotten so out of control.
Yes, and it's not the blue shirts that's responsible for that. One thing I was amazed at in seeing all the pictures was the amount of white shirts. White shirts are the supervisors. The blue shirts are the frontline fighters. White shirts are there to supervise, and they have got to stand in the back. They can't be having the urine thrown on them, the rocks and bottles thrown on them. They have to have the clear mind. And if they're not enduring that type of abuse, they can maintain a clear mind. And that way they can look and see what's going on that shouldn't be going on, and then step forward with a clear mind to stop it. When you're involved with the arrests and the fighting, who's supervising?
Retired police captain from Philadelphia, Ray Lewis, who now lives in upstate New York. Captain Lewis, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate you joining us and salute your courage.
Again, thank you for helping the movement.
You're welcome. Coming up, the war on Thanksgiving. Well, sort of, as a crackpot columnist battles butterballs. She exposes the Muslim ritual behind our Thanksgiving turkeys. She'll take a right wing, please. What will they come for next? Our bald eagles? Aw, shucks, those NASCAR folks didn't mean any offense when they booed Michelle Obama. And Rick Perry just spoke the plain old truth when he said President Obama had a privileged childhood. Oh, and Rush Limbaugh calling the First Lady uppity? What's wrong with that? Janeane Garofalo will try to explain. And next, Islamophobia now includes fear of Turkey. No, not the nation of Turkey, the bird of Thanksgiving. A right-wing columnist is trashing Butterball as a subversive threat. We kid you not. Next on Countdown. When I first heard about this next story, I thought it must be a joke. I mean, here it is Thanksgiving week, and nobody in their right mind would protest killing turkeys too humanely. The operative phrase is in their right mind. Allow me to introduce you to conservative columnist Pamela Geller. She's a darling of the right wing. She's a notorious hater of Muslims, and she just wrote a column complaining about Butterball. Here's the background. Butterball, as you may know, is one of the most popular producers of Thanksgiving turkeys in the United States. The company believes in making their product palatable to a variety of religious Americans. And to that end, Butterball recently confirmed its whole turkeys are certified halal. Halal is an Islamic term that refers to how animals are butchered, much like kosher butchering for Jewish people. Halal requires that an animal be killed in the most humane fashion possible by swiftly cutting the turkey's throat. According to Geller, this is a problem. Why should we be forced to conform to Islamic norms? It's Islamic supremacism on the march yet again. Yes, according to Pam Geller, it's Islamic supremacism. She went on to write, quote, non-Muslims in America and Europe don't deserve to have halal turkey forced upon them in this way, without their knowledge or consent. So this Thanksgiving, fight for your freedom. Find a non-halal, non-Butterball turkey to celebrate Thanksgiving this Thursday, and write to Butterball and request politely but firmly that they stop selling only halal turkeys and make a non-halal turkey available to Americans who still value our freedoms. Pam, we're talking about turkeys, and allow me to enlighten you and your readers. It's not just how a turkey is killed that is important for halal or kosher certification. The animal must not be diseased. If the turkey has tumors or cysts, it's not certified. The meat must not come in contact with contaminants, like worms, bugs, dirt, feces, bacteria, things that are also not allowed by federal meat inspectors. All the blood must be allowed to drain out before packaging. Pam, you wrote, I wouldn't knowingly buy a halal turkey, would you? Actually, I would. In fact, most Americans who eat turkey would probably be more likely to buy a halal or kosher one if they knew what it stood for. But I want to help you protect your Thanksgiving from the threat of clean, healthy, humanely butchered meat. So I encourage you to go to a turkey farm tomorrow, ask for the most diseased animal around, clobber it over the head with a dull hammer, but not too hard because you want the bird to suffer for a while. Drag the animal on the ground, smear it in feces, take the bird home, expose it to as much bacteria as possible, then serve it as your Thanksgiving meal. After all, as you wrote, who wants halal turkeys, especially on a day in which we are giving thanks to God for our freedom? Exercise your freedom, Pam. Go with diseased, dirty, infected turkey meat and let us know how your family and guests enjoy the holiday at your house or whatever insane asylum these days you are calling home. If the right wing is good at one thing, it is creating attack lines. They usually have no basis in fact, but are catchy and scary. And our number one story, the latest right-wing attack on President Obama appears to be a retread. No, not the Obama's a secret Muslim line, but painting the Obamas as arugula-eating elitists who more than anything are uppity. It was in 2008 that then-candidate Obama said Americans were bitter over the American government's failures to fix the economic situation. The right-wing response, led by their candidate John McCain, was to paint the interracial child of a single mother as elitist. But in the spirit of Thanksgiving, the right wing is using its leftovers and bringing that attack line back. The relaunch of the attack started last week when Rick Perry brought his fledgling campaign to Sean Hannity to discuss the out-of-context sound of Obama calling the government lazy.
This is not the first time that he's gone after the American people. What does it reveal to you about his mindset and his thinking?
It reveals to me that he grew up in a privileged way. He never had to really work for anything.
Of course, in 2008, the elitist attack failed. So this time around, the right wing decided to paint the whole Obama family as elitist. Enter Rush Limbaugh. He took it upon himself to explain the NASCAR fans' disrespectful reaction to the First Lady from over the weekend.
NASCAR people, the rest of us, we do not like being told steak and arugula. We do not like being told that we can only eat what's being grown in her garden. We don't like being told what to eat. We don't like being told how much to exercise. They understand it's a little bit of uppity-ism.
Maybe Rush is right. I mean, there's nothing more uppity than the First Lady of a nation with a growing obesity epidemic encouraging people to exercise and eat right. Who needs to do that when an obese person can simply pay a Florida-based weight loss center to feed them low-calorie foods and supplements to help them lose 90 pounds? Why encourage every citizen to display self-control when you can just pay a company to lose the weight for you? Right, Rush? Let's bring in comedian and friend of the show, Janeane Garofalo. Janeane, thanks for your time for tonight, for putting up with that line.
Thank you for having me.
This idea of the Obamas being uppity and privileged, coming from a party that has the likes of Mitt Romney, Newt Gingrich running for the nomination, do they not have a mirror?
Well, what he means, I think, by privilege, Rick Perry saying that, what he's really saying is that he did not have to work for what he got. It's affirmative action. He was the beneficiary of all these liberal social engineering. He didn't deserve to get into the schools he got into. He doesn't deserve to be where he is. He's, that's what he means by privileged. And when he also talks about pretending that Obama said Americans were lazy, he's picking that word again because that's a conservative meme of the welfare mothers, and they want handouts, and people, you know what I mean, poor people are lazy, and they want the government to do things for them. So
except when the poor people are conservatives or Republicans.
Oh, it's always a double standard when it's conservatives and so forth. But uppity is, it's the hackest, you know what I mean, most obvious thing, and that's why Rush Limbaugh says it. But how dare a black woman, no less, tell people to eat healthy and to show up at NASCAR, which is the bastion of real America. It's just one of those things where, as usual, the conservative movement and Republican Party, because their pool of applicants, if you will, is shrinking as modernity sets in and time moves on, and more people in our culture and society become more enlightened and become more forward-thinking. They have less and less people who are going to be Republican and conservative, and that old chestnut libertarian, which is really nothing more than a conservative. So they have to do things like use divisive language, or...
But why do it in such a way that's so reminiscent of 2008 when it didn't work?
Well, what do they got? What other material? It's it's a hack comedian. You got to get some new material. But the thing is it always works on a certain segment of the population. If you are trying to appeal to the worst in us, quite literally, the worst in us, and you're trying to go to the limbic brain of anxiety, fear, intolerance, hatred, bitterness, ignorance, you have to just use these very simple, as they say, dog whistle words and things to get to them.
How does it work then for Father of the Year Joe Walsh? I mean, he recently called the Occupy protesters un-American, among other things. Is the GOP that far into the pockets of the banks that protesting the banks is somehow protesting America in Joe Walsh's world?
Well, they have to pretend that's the case. But, I mean, this is the party of freedom fries. Do you remember freedom fries and freedom toast? Two of the more embarrassing things that have ever happened in this country at the commissary post 9/11, that you couldn't say French toast and French fries. And I believe French toast is from Belgium, or French fries are from Belgium, and French toast, I think, is from Buffalo, New York, originally. Be that as it may, and Michelle Bachmann wanted that American test. How American are you? It's so silly. It infantilizes us all. And unfortunately, the mainstream media is quite willing to help them do this, quite willing to let these things slide. But they do love a black man like Herman Cain and Michael Steele and is it Ron Christie, or any of these pundits who pretend we're in a post-racial society. They like that kind of black person.
What kind of reaction would we get, or what would the right, how would they react if the pepper spraying at UC Davis had been on Tea Party ralliers?
Oh my God! Well, pepper spray would be banned first and foremost. There would, and if you think about it, the Tea Party, many of them claimed to be armed, right? They were very pridefully saying, I have my gun at this healthcare town hall, or I'm not armed this time. They had signs that would say that. So how is linking arms on a college campus an act of aggression, but saying you have a gun and you're willing to use it and it's time to secede into a revolution and you don't recognize this government as legitimate? How is that not seen as some type of aggressive thing? But it's just it's one of those things, again, that is just so silly, and it makes you feel like you're the crazy one when you see these things. But the double standard that exists for the Tea Party, which is not, by the way, a grassroots movement that is concerned with deficits and government expansion. They are a astroturfed, fully funded by the Koch brothers and Freedom Works and supported by Fox News. They are a subset of the Republican Party, primarily motivated by racial intolerance.
Well, Janeane Garofalo, it's always a pleasure to have you here to talk about these fun issues.
Is there not more? Can we talk about how to kill a turkey? There's better ways to kill a turkey. Let's drag it behind a car.
Thanks, Janeane. We appreciate it. And that is it for our show tonight. I'm David Shuster in for Keith Olbermann. On behalf of all of us at Countdown, have a great Thanksgiving, everyone.